as usual is how we got into this mess. So we ask your patience as we navigate this new way of connecting in this quarantine time. Thanks to Greg Mady, who's with the Edmonton District and Labour Council, as well as with this year's, there he's waving, Edmonton May Day Committee, who's helping to moderate with this technology. So thank you, Greg. Is Kathy on the call? Kathy Hamlin. Not seeing her on the call. So we'll improvise. So we had Kathy Hamlin is a community grandmother from Treaty 8 territory originally. And as you know, if you've been to our May Day marches and rallies before, we always recognize the territory that we're gathered on. And we ask for that moment of not just acknowledgement, but also a time to focus our intention that on what we're gathered here to achieve. So in the absence of Kathy leading us in that ceremony, I just ask you to reflect on the, there may be people beyond Treaty 6 territory that are joining us, I'm not sure, but to just take a moment to reflect on the intention that we have set, which is to fight against the exploitation of workers and to make sure that it's the workers who decide the path forward. Okay. All right. So we've got a few messages in the chat. Feliz Dia de Trabajadores in Spanish. Marco, get ready because I'm going to call on you next. As we've mentioned, in seniors care, in food processing and other sectors, workers have been speaking out for years about what kinds of things are needed to combat unsafe and unjust working conditions. So we've seen that workers are the ones that know what should have been done, what must be done, but what we're missing is the power to decide. So many of the hardest hit sectors are sectors where we see a lot of migrant workers. And we're seeing very clearly right now Canada's reliance on migrant workers in all areas of our economy, from agriculture to all kinds of caring work to food processing and service as well. But because of the exploitative nature of the labor trafficking programs, these essential workers face enormous challenges and difficulty in speaking about the dangerous and difficult working conditions they're facing. But Marco Luciano is a leader with Migrante Alberta, and he's also active, Migrante Alberta is also active in a national migrant rights coalition. So welcome, Marco Luciano. I will unmute you now. No. Greg, can you unmute him? I'm not seeming to be able to. There we go. Nope. Unmute. There we go. Marco, we can hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay.
Militant greetings to everyone. Happy May Day. My name is Marco. I'm from Migrante, Alberta. Of course, I would like to wish everyone a militant International Workers' Day, fellow migrants and immigrants and refugees and displaced peoples. Also marks this day as a day of unity and solidarity in order to advance our calls to protect migrant workers and their families against COVID-19, but also to fight for our rights as workers and resist neoliberal imposition to health and labor, and realize a truly just system for many who are exploited and oppressed by this capitalist system. We also offer our tribute to migrants and immigrant frontliners who have died as they perform their duties. We take our hats off to other migrant frontliners in the health sector, as well as all essential services who are at risk of daily exposure as they continue to do their work. COVID-19 exposed the vulnerabilities of migrants, refugees, and displaced peoples. This pandemic aggravates the capitalist crisis already spinning out of control way before it exploded globally. This vulnerability stems from the deteriorating access to free public healthcare system, the extreme flexibilization of migrant labor, and the intensifying problems of poverty, unemployment, and displacement of people from their countries of origin. Everywhere we see neglect of the health and well-being of migrants, from insufficient provisions of PPE to those in need, to lack of access because of undocumented status and lack of income, even in the simplest need of face mask or alcohol. Explosion of cases in Cargill and JBS meat plants, for example, shed light to the conditions of workers and the living and working conditions of migrant workers in Alberta. It also shed light on the racism that this crisis creates to divide communities and the working people. Dr. Hinshaw, while she provided good leadership, also careless and irresponsible statement puts the blame on the spread of the virus to the quote unquote cultural living practices and carpooling of Filipinos. This created backlash among different community members in High River. While in JBS, it's rapidly getting exposed to this virus. The current government have not imposed a mandatory shutdown, and this big corporation continue to operate. Like many workers, many migrants are now out of employment, suffering from loss or reduced income, are in danger of becoming undocumented or deported, and will face uncertainties back home without any means of support. For TFWs in Canada, losing employment can mean losing their temporary worker status. There are more than 20,000 estimated undocumented migrants in Alberta. These workers are invited to Canada as part of the cheap and disposable workforce in caregiving, food service, and food production industries. We Albertans eat because of these workers. Many of these workers fall into the wide immigration cracks that made them lose their status. But due to their temporary and, in many cases, undocumented status, migrants are not covered by economic packages for workers, which doubles the problem of lack of income, and even for their daily needs and basic services such as healthcare in these times of COVID-19. But in the midst of these hardships, it is important that we continue to fight for our rights as workers, and more importantly, for a change in the system where migrants are treated with dignity, equality, just, and respect. It is inspiring that everywhere, migrants and advocates, despite of the difficulties posed by the pandemic, continue to respond to their utmost urgency and issues and their concerns. Migrante have created a task force that addresses these immediate needs. We do fundraising, food distribution, and distribution of materials for their safety, such as masks, alcohol, disinfectants, and so on. We also kickstarted a campaign in the province called the HSS, the Alberta Health Care for All. And it calls for the provincial government to provide access to healthcare for non-Alberta healthcare insurance plan cardholders, especially in this time of COVID. It's important for Albertans to understand that the healthcare and safety of these migrants are the health and safety of all Albertans. Nationally, though, through the Migrants' Rights Network, a loose network of grassroots migrants organization, we're also campaigning for migrants to have access to CERB, as they are an active part of Canadian economy. Lastly, it is important for us, while it's important for us to do physical distancing to flatten the curve of COVID-19, it's also important for us to understand that it's only through the militant unity of the working class that we will defeat all crises, most especially the crisis of capitalism. Onward with worker struggle. Long live international solidarity. I have a couple of minutes video of our campaign nationally, and that I would like to share with you.
In a public health crisis, unless we protect everyone, we cannot protect anyone.
I got my wife that is, her due date is on May 29th. Me and my wife, we don't have an SIN, a valid SIN number. And still we are asked to stay home. But the reality is that I cannot stay home. I don't have any kind of support. I need to hustle basically every day.
Ahora con el problema del COVID-19, no he podido ir a trabajar a Canadá. Y como nuestros ingresos económicos es con el trabajo que realizamos en Canadá, me encuentro en apuros económicos para solventar gastos en mi familia.
We cannot imagine ourselves on the street with our kids, having no way to provide them any food.
Los indocumentados, nosotros también somos humanos, nosotros también trabajamos y contribuimos fuertemente a la economía, a nuestro trabajo, nuestra mano de obra que permite que siga funcionando esta máquina de la economía. Nosotras limpiamos, cuidamos las casas de otras mujeres, las que trabajamos como domésticas, cuidamos niños, ancianos, hacemos limpieza en hospitales, supermercados, trabajamos en los campos, en las fábricas. Nuestra mano de obra se encuentra en todos los sectores de la economía.
Myself and all my coworkers were all laid off. As a result of losing my job and also not qualifying for support because my SIN is expired, I have no idea how I'm going to be able to pay for rent and food.
I still need to eat and live. I believe we also should not be left behind. We contributed to Canada.
我希望得到公平的待遇，我也应该得到政府的紧急救济金。
All migrants in Canada must have income support.
It's really hard for me to believe that migrants like myself and all migrants cannot get support because of a formality like expired social insurance number.
I'm ready to work and ready to do what it takes to be a resident here. But I also include fighting for my rights as a worker, regardless of my status.
It is absolutely urgent that the government immediately extend income support to all workers who have been affected by COVID-19, regardless of their immigration status.
Thank you.